That's why. Yeah, it's live now.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Economic Development Asset Management Committee. Before we start, I'd just like to welcome a new member of staff to our team. We've got Joelle Davies here. It's a really long title, so have you got a mic? No, just say what your title is then, Joelle. And then we can, she's joining our team.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Group Manager for Growth, Infrastructure and Development.
So you put her under pressure straight away. So she's come from Gedling, highly recommended. She also was at Bassetlaw. So she's got a really good feel for two major parts of the county. And I'm looking forward to seeing working with us in what we're trying to achieve. So welcome, Joel, to New Nottinghamshire County Council. Okay. Minutes of the meeting held on the 7th of September. We were happy that's a true reflection. Yeah, move it. Yeah, lovely, thank you. Apologies for absence. Councillor Carl.
Yes, apologies from Councillor Zadrozny, I'm substituting.
Lovely, thank you. Sorry, I think somebody tried to tell us that, didn't they? Okay, but just so you know, we have got some officers who are isolating on the screen there that would do the function, so we might have to bring them in to answer questions or to say what we're doing and everything. So we should be all right though. Declarations of interest by members and officers. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and private interests. Anybody? That's a big no. Thank you. Okay, then that takes us on to item 4. Matt.
Thank you, Chairman. So the report in front of you is to update the committee on the progress in delivering the Invest in Nottinghamshire programme and for members to consider changes to the scope of the programme in the light of the Council's approval of a hybrid working policy and to provide an estate to serve our communities and the declaration of the climate emergency. The report itself highlights three committee papers that have been received recently, which have impacted on the review of the proposals. That is the 9th of December Policy Committee report around the Invest in Lots programme and an update that was given to members then, but also the full council agreeing to declare the climate emergency in May, and also the Policy Committee on the 15th of July around the hybrid working strategy and implementation of the hybrid working strategy in the county council. The report reviews the scope and content of the programme and ensures that it captures the opportunities that have come out of all of those reports, and that it maximises the environmental benefits available to us. In terms of the update around the programme, it talks through the fact that we've moved now from 17 buildings to 10. And also that it's made significant savings in terms of the revenue position, which is also outlined in the report. In terms of the review of the programme, we're now looking at refocusing and prioritising 4 build projects, whilst the whole programme is laid out within the report in table number 1. The focus is now on 4 new build projects, or 4 build projects at Topwig Hay, and our refurbishment programmes at Beeston and at Retford, and also a planned new build at Worksop. The report also highlights that there are other opportunities that we will also want to develop further. So it talks about the Mansfield Hub opportunity and the Levelling Up Fund bid that Mansfield District Council are looking to proceed with, and how that may well impact on our property in Mansfield. These are the types of things we will be wanting to look at in the future, and the report does go on to talk about how we might well want to exploit other opportunities that may present themselves with our district and borough colleagues moving forward. And indeed, we already have done with some of our other authorities, such as Newark and Sherwood, for example. The other elements of the report talk about our disposal programme, and there are a number of disposals that are highlighted in the report, as well as a restructuring of our existing staff complement into the property team within my department, and that's laid out within the report itself. So in summary, the review details the proposals. It details some of the areas where we want to move the team in order to deliver the proposals contained within. And it also shows that there is a reduction in the future ask for capital required for the programme from 27 million to 20.9 million. The recommendations are contained within the report, Chairman.
Thank you, Matt. Before I open up to questions, I just want to say one thing really, is the fact that this will now open up some of the buildings that we won't be using. Yeah, and we're about to look at what we're going to do with those in terms of, are we going to renovate them and then rent them out? Are we going to sell them? Are we going to knock them down and build houses on them? So it's given us a great option to make sure our estate is working for us as a county council, and it's going to bring in much wanted revenue. Yeah, sorry, yeah, the recommendations. So the recommendations are on page 18, 1 and 2. Have a second, please, Reg.
Second, that was the right.
Lovely, thank you. So I now open it up to questions, comments. Anybody? Yep.
Yeah, on point 23, obviously I'm new to this. Do you use a formula to calculate how you might get to 1,000 new jobs from what you're doing on this? And also point 31, as a councillor for Mansfield, is there any further information regarding working together with Mansfield District Council on that? And would it be possible to keep me informed on that one a little bit? And point 47, what modelling's been carried out to lead the council to come to the recommendations in the report? Obviously, we want to ensure it's fit for purpose and the properties are in the right place, and the carbon footprint as well. You know, so they're my 3 points really.
Yeah, Excuse me, Matt.
Thank you, Chairman. So in terms of, I'll hopefully address each of the points you've raised. In terms of the calculation is based on the employment use that we're expecting to see at Top Wighay. It also applies, so there is also an employment element to that programme, and it also applies to some of the other ancillary elements. So, for example, there'll also be a local centre and a primary school provided in there. So that calculation is based on those areas. In terms of Mansfield, there are a number of working groups that have been set up by the District Council, and I'm part of one of those, to look at how they're going to design the new building and what types of uses are going to go into that building. So I'll obviously be feeding in our plans as part of this report. And in terms of the final point, which I think was around the modelling, there's been a significant element of modelling of our services and how they are located and where they're located. And for example, one of our facilities, the Piazza, that has led us to look at that and be able to look at relocating into the proposals that are contained within here. So there's a significant amount of modelling that goes into the whole development process.
Do you want to come back at all?
No, that's fine, thank you.
Lovely, thank you. I think in terms of Mansfield, it's pretty much standard throughout the whole of the county now that we're looking and talking to all boroughs and districts to say, you know, what are your plans? Are you building anything new? Are you creating hubs, things like that, so that we can look at how we can get in right at the beginning and contribute to that in terms of where we might be able to deliver our services from. And that's even to the point of talking to towns and parishes where they might have a library, and where we can co-locate a library with the parish or town council as well. You know, because we've got some, you know, we're very proud of our libraries, but some of them are in a bit of a state. And if we can do something to make that better, you know, and provide a better service for people, then that's what we'll try and do. So that it's across the board, not just Mansfield. I just wanted to make that point clear. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Chair, officers and fellow members. If I draw your attention to paragraph 51, which is on page 16 of 62, we're talking there about risks, and there's a couple of risks there that have been highlighted. One being cost. We all know at the moment that the Gedling Access Road, which of course isn't on this agenda, but that is overspent because of rising construction costs. Already the Top Wighay Farm development is over £50 million. That's gone up 1 million. There are huge risks associated with costs of any construction at the moment, and that is likely to get worse, not better. Also, of course, there's a lack of people to actually do the building, and people are having to pay premium to get people to do the building as well. Also, the situation with regards to hybrid working model. The actual report actually says here that the impact of the hybrid working model and the utilisation of our office estate is yet to be understood, but we're proposing to go ahead. I just don't think that we should be doing this when we've got such risks. There's a reason why we call it a risk. It's a risk to the money of council taxpayers. I also mentioned paragraph 56, which is on the same, no, it's not the same page, on the next page, where we're talking about a capital investment required of 20.9 million coming from borrowing from the Public Work Loan Board. Could you give me an estimate of the cost when you factor in interest rates and other borrowing costs? And also, sorry to go on, back to 22. There's a note there about the refurbishment of Beeston Central. I just wonder whether anybody actually spoke to Broxtowe Council, because Broxtowe Council have potentially got a whole floor, very, very recently refurbished, which is probably now surplus to use because our staff, there's only going to be about 40% of them in at any one time at Broxtowe Borough Council. I just wonder whether anybody spoke to Broxtowe Council about the possibility of being in the same building It would have been ideal because it's, you know, the police are there as well, and so the Citizens Advice Bureau. Thank you.
Okay, before I bring Matt in, I just want to put my angle on it, if you like, really, and in some of those things. I won't go into the technical side because that's why you have officers to do that. But in terms of the floor that Broxtowe have furnished and is available, my initial thought on that is we've got, as a county, to make sure that we've got the stability moving forward in terms of the capacity and things. So one of the risks which you highlighted is the fact that we don't really know what the pattern of work is going to be. Because we've asked all the staff now, how do you anticipate you working in the future? And they've all said, yeah, but they've said that in the climate that we're in now. And that'll be the same, I'm sure, that Broxtowe have done. I'm sure it's the same that Ashfield have done with their staff. So they're all commenting now in terms of how they feel that they want to work moving forward. And so for us to then say, OK, then we're not going to do that. We're going to go and rent off Broxtowe, that floor. And then a year down the line, 2 years down the line, your model of working changes. Who are you going to get rid of? Us. Yeah. And then we'd have, well, if you need your staff to work on that floor, you will. So we need that stability so that we can be confident that we've got the flexibility. And one of the things about this is not the flexibility is built into this in terms of if people change their way of working, we've got that flexibility. Because a lot of these buildings, they weren't at full capacity anyway. A lot of these buildings are actually not in the best of state. So this was all about putting it all together and making sure that we have a council estate that is fit for purpose and it's flexible enough to adjust to any workflows in terms of how people want to work. So that's my view on that, really. I'll now let Matt come in with all the technical questions that you asked, which involves money.
Thank you, Chairman. So again, just picking up, if I can, on the risks which you've brought to committee's attention. So in terms of the costs, there is an allowance in there for some contingency and for some inflation, but we're clearly flagging that at the moment, as you've rightly pointed out, there is a number of different shifting costs in construction. So, but that we feel we've now got something built into that cost that will protect us moving forward. Also, we're using our own supply chain. So ARC are going to be the managing contractors for these developments. So again, they have a supply chain that they can rely on because they're also building our schools and so on there. So that helps us in terms of people actually being on the floor to be able to build the new buildings. In terms of our the hybrid working risk, what we've got within here are buildings that are delivering services through our front-facing services. So there will be colleagues that can talk more eloquently about those services than myself, but certainly those buildings are being used by staff that have actually been using offices throughout the pandemic, and that's highlighted within the report. So I'd point those things out in terms of the risk, but obviously we just wanted to flag those as part of the report.
Thank you. Are you happy?
I asked about potential cost of borrowing as well.
Apologies, I can't answer the question in terms of the inflation
we can
interest rates, but I can certainly come back.
We'll have to obviously get financing on that, but we'll come back to you. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It won't come as any surprise to you that I'll be voting against this. There's been an absolute fundamental sea change in the original decision to borrow £20 million to spend on new buildings and offices whilst rushing up others. I've always said that this review has been farcical, and yet the total amount that you're planning to borrow has gone down, but the posh new council offices proposed at Topwiggy Farm in Hucknall, and it may be in the Gedlin area, but it's in Hucknall, has gone up by £1 million to £15.7 million. There is no mention in this report the impact on the area. There is the fundamental distress this is going to cause to residents. The impact on the highways, no mention of that. No mention of the infrastructure for sewers, getting rid of the waste. None. Traffic, None. Rather than wait for the publication of this report,
That's all gone through already, isn't it?
or indeed today's vote on this report, you, Mr. Chairman, you chose to leak it to the media. You assumed that your council colleagues, your Conservative council colleagues, would just go ahead and push the vote through at the council. But the overall debt of this council is £600 million from borrowing from Public Works Loans Board for buildings I believe we don't need. You, Mr. Chairman, have claimed that you maybe have been beaten with a stick after deciding to go ahead with these expensive plans. You've already been beaten by something. You've been beaten by common sense. We've had officers ringing our members up, asking them, how are you using your laptops because we've got that many people working from home? That is absolutely obscene. You've got this administration's got no idea of the impact that this is going to cause on the residents of Hucknall. I have repeatedly asked for the review. Who undertook it? Where was the call for evidence? And what consultation did you really have with staff and members? Because I fundamentally believe that this is wrong.
Right, I'll come back on a bit of that, and then I'll bring the officers in for comments on the technical side of it. I'm always very disappointed that the language that is used against officers. I don't mind you calling me, that's politics, and I've got broad shoulders and I can take it, and you can beat me with any stick you like. I've been shot at a few times and they missed, so go ahead and get on with it. I find it incredulous that you're saying that the impact on Hucknall and the population of Hucknall that it's going to have, even though that's gone through planning anyway, when you're actually going to build 3,000 houses on Wyburn in Hucknall as part of your plan. So, you know, again, it's hypocrisy from the Ashfield Independents, and I'm really disappointed. I think it's disappointing that in this report you don't make no mention of the £1.35 million a year that it will save in terms of our and revenue in heating our buildings and looking after our buildings. You make no mention of the fact that actually people are saying that the climate change is one of the most important factors for them to think about. As a council, we are putting our head up and saying, yeah, you're right, and we're going to do this. We're building this building to show other people the benefits of it and what that will bring into that. I mean, again, you know, Ashfield, I've been on your website. You've got your carbon management plan, April 2010. Clearly, you're not interested in carbon reduction. You've got your own. What are we doing about energy efficiency? Your council, and you're on it, are actually looking at renewable energy, and you're going to be doing upgrading your buildings to do it. So you're doing to your buildings what you're saying we shouldn't be doing to ours. Again, it's hypocrisy. Again, you keep bringing up amount of money that we pay in loans. Yeah, 10%. It's a lot, and it's not what we'd want. Actually, Ashfield's in over 20%. Again, you're on that council. Hypocrisy. So don't sit there almighty saying it's wrong and calling these officers for the work they do when you can't even keep your own house in order. Don't throw stones in glass houses.
Can I come back on that?
Oh, you can. Absolutely, you can.
I feel you know, that you've overstepped the mark as chair and really should apologise. However,
okay.
Doesn't it impact the environment by building new buildings, by using resources that we've already having to hew out the ground and actually manufacture concrete, bricks, delivery, transportation, and so on and so forth?
Right. No, you've had your say. What I'll do when all the councillors have had their say, I'm going to bring in Councillor Adams, who's our it's not a czar, is it? You're our guru or whatever it is in terms of that. And I know you've been looking at the benefits of what that's going to bring to there in terms of carbon neutralisation and everything. Has anybody else got any other questions?
It's a point of clarification on the standard.
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah,
thank you. Ashfield District Council haven't got a local plan. They are consulting on it at the moment. So to say that they are planning to build on that site you mentioned is incorrect.
No, it's in their plan. It's what they put forward. That's why they've got people against Wyburn development.
It's
you
in
know.
their consultation, which is
Yeah,
completely
yeah, of course.
different. Yeah,
Yeah.
Well, it is. If you
Yeah.
don't understand, then why you're there?
Glenn. Councillor Foyle.
Yeah, thank you. That's okay, thank we are two different people, just so okay, that's fine. Okay. Point that out. Yeah, okay. Just say thank you. I mean, I think it's just to say, I think it's a shame. This should not be a party political spat. What it should be about is actually providing really good services in the right place for the people of this county, and that's really the kind of questions that I want to ask you now. So, the first thing I want to say is this is a massive report, huge in scope, very difficult to get your head around, I have to admit. I've read it several times, had some wonderful briefings, I have to say, from officers. And I do feel for the officers here, because this really is a moving feast, isn't it? Fast as you kind of get one thing sorted in terms of perhaps environmental stuff, you know, you end up with the kind of other things that are happening around you that's very difficult to control. So thank you for the work you put into this, because I do realise how complex it is and kind of how difficult it is. But what I'd like to do, the number of things I'd be interested in, one is, how do you reconcile the fact that you've got an estate, the buildings are where the buildings are, and then you're saying, you know, that you want to make sure that the services are provided and closer to your communities. How do you get that right? Because clearly there's conflict there, isn't there, between where the buildings are, where the services need to be delivered, and where your staff live too. So I think that's something, and that's the kind of thing that's missing in this report. We're getting a kind of fairly, I know you've kind of got the aims, a fairly descriptive approach to where we are in terms of the estate. What we're not getting is what the likely impact this is likely to be on our residents. And that's something I think that probably could be an important part of this report. I think, and again, things are kind of in and out of this a little bit. I just wonder, is the archive, brand new archive, no, it just seems to have disappeared out of the report. I just wonder where that's got to. I mean, there's other things as well that I think will impact on this that I know isn't about the current estate. But, you know, HS2, is it not going to happen? You know, how would that impact? Well, how will the Freeport impact on it if it comes off? It feels a little bit, and I know it's difficult, that this is a snapshot of where we are now, but what I don't see is a connect between this and actually what's going on in terms of the wider context. Just one or two more quick questions. I'll get there in a minute. Yeah, I'm interested in your response to Anne Callaghan's question about 47 in terms of how you do that modelling. I'd just like to understand how you model employment use, what that actually means, just so as I can understand that a little bit better. The other thing I was a bit concerned about, and again, this goes back to some of what Councillor Carr was just saying, paragraph 55 says that the report is going to be presented to Finance Committee with a more detailed latest estimate cost. And I just wonder, again, I'm concerned about the risk here, because we all know that energy is going up, materials are going up, they're difficult to get hold of. I mean, the risk, the estimation in here, they could be way higher, couldn't they? So what I wouldn't like to see a report that just goes to committee saying this is the estimated cost without this context. Does that follow? So where actually you've got both the context of actually what's going on with what the cost is, so we can actually understand better what the implications of the extra cost might be. Okay. I think I've got a few more, but I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
In anticipation of some of your questions, what I've done is I've asked a couple of officers to be here in terms of the services that will be delivered from that building, so that you can understand why we picked there for a start, and you know, moving services away from here is not a bad thing. It's more centralised. So I'll bring Ainsley in first, if that's okay. Your children and your adult social care and health. I knew I'd get it wrong. Adult social care and health.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm pleased that you raised the point, Councillor Foyle, about the impact for local residents. I've been sort of really involved in this programme of work from an adult social care perspective right the way through, as have colleagues from children's services. And our role within the programme is very much about giving a view as to what would be appropriate and accessible to the people that we support. So in a number of these scenarios, what we're looking for is, accessibility within localities. So I really welcome the post-16 centre development in Retford, because from adult social care, we don't currently have a base in Retford. So I'm, talking to Matt about having touchdown space there. Beeston Central was one of the buildings that I was particularly involved with, and the reason that we went for Beeston Central was because the main activity that's going to be carried out there is children's case conferencing and supervised contact. So it needs to be a building that is local, it's accessible, but also that it's got a friendly feel to it. Now, I take the point that, potentially there could have been an opportunity to go in with Broxtowe District Council and the police on same site. But for a lot of people that we support, that kind of building would be off-putting. They don't want to engage with statutory agencies a lot of the time anyway. So to bring them into a building that's, got quite a heavy presence of statutory agencies, for a lot of people, you just won't get them in there. So we do have to look at which type of building suits the need best. And certainly, from an adult social care perspective, we're very much focused on locality working, place-based working with partners. My staff are really keen to move into Castle House in Newark so that they're with District Council colleagues, because it makes our partnership working so much easier if we've already got those relationships and colleagues can talk to one another across the desks, as it were. With regards to some of the issues that we've now got around hybrid working, yes, we've been forced into a position that we couldn't have foreseen. Certainly when this programme was designed, we had no idea that COVID was coming. We didn't know that we were about to be pushed into a scenario where we would have pretty much 90% of our staff working from home. However, certainly adult social care staff, as much as they enjoy the flexibility of that, they also need to have time in the office, because they need that contact with colleagues. They need to be able to debrief, and they miss that. And I've got lots of staff who have started to come back into office bases, not 5 days a week, but they are coming back in because they need to have that contact with colleagues. And that's really important to them. And that's certainly the feedback that we've had. I couldn't, say, will that still be the position in 12 months' time, in 3 years' time? I really don't know. But at the moment, certainly, they don't want to be at home all of the time.
Thank you. And I've also got, I'll get it right this time then, it's Steve Edwards, who's the Children and Young People Services.
Yeah, spot on. Thank you very much. I've got a lot of echo here. Sorry about that. Adding to what Ainsley has said, I've just looked at, I'm at the Welbeck Children's Office, and I'm only in one little bit of the building. I've just looked out the window from the office that I'm in. We've got 15 colleagues that are working in the office today. And for a lot of our colleagues, they've continued to work office-based throughout the pandemic, because they do need the support of their colleagues, given the complex and sometimes stressful nature of the work that we're doing. And quite often it's important to remember that we do need our own offices, and some office venues aren't always suitable. We need meeting rooms for children and families, and our client base is unusual. We only have meetings really with children, and then with the parents, and these are vulnerable children, so the parents are often paedophiles, unfortunately, drug users, drug dealers, people who perpetrate domestic violence, the people who've got, sadly, mental health problems, people who are alcohol dependent. It's not always easy to fit that population and that client group in with other sort of public facing meeting areas. So I really welcome the balance that we've got at the meeting at the moment with having our buildings as close to our communities as possible. The eventual move to Worksop from Beeston will be excellent because in Bassetlaw, most of the child protection work and the work that Children's Social Care do is on that western Worksop side and up to Carlton. So there'll be less travelling time and that'll be a saving for the council. Equally, the space in Beeston gives us the option to work through to Rushcliffe from that area and up to Broxtowe as well without having to travel through the city. I'm really pleased that there's money now for some refurbishment work at Meadow House because that's a building that's outdated. It's either too hot, too cold, and it's not very friendly. There's nowhere to sit and have lunch, anything like that. And they're important things, and we need to recruit social workers. And there's a national shortage. And if we have to use 80 agency social workers, it costs us £80,000 a year per social worker. So we need to create that right environment, not only for our children and families, but for our workforce if we're going to be as cost effective as possible. Happy to take any questions if anyone's got anything there.
Well, thank you for that. Right, I'll bring you in then, Matt, in terms of finishing off any of the questions that Kate asked and in terms of that. So are you happy so far with the responses there? Yeah, of course, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Chairman. So just to add, I think there were two questions to be answered. One around the employment use and the calculation. So that's effectively a job creation figure based on the types of uses that we will have at the site. So as I said before, so the primary school, for example, and professional trades, as well as the use that we will have within the employment facility, and it's based over the area of the facility that we have there. So it's a standard calculation that throws out. And then the last point, I think, was around the estimated cost. The standard practice is that we bring a report back to the Finance Committee as opposed to this committee when we get to the point of committing to a contract. So that's usually the standard practice within the County Council.
Do you want to come back, Kate?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's given me much more of an insight. I suppose the only thing I'd say is what I was asking really is how we can kind of somehow measure the community benefit of all this, which I know is really tricky, but it just seems to me that, and what Stephen Ainsley said was really helpful, and it sounds very positive, but it's how can I put it? I mean, it's a bit anecdotal, isn't it, from the point of view actually whether we know how effective it's going to be, and it may be that that's all he can do. I don't know, but if you could kind of have a think about actually how we might measure that.
Yeah, I think you're right, Kate. I think it is difficult to measure. I think we've got to rely on the professionalism of our officers to understand the benefits it will have, because they're the ones that are on the coal face, if you like, day in, day out, and they will know and see it on a regular basis. So if there is a measure, I don't know, but if there is a measure, then we'll look at doing it. But at the end of the day, it's these professionals that's out there and their staff that will realise and recognise those benefits.
I mean, I wouldn't argue with that.
Yeah.
But actually, one way of finding out would actually to be asked the people who are using service, wouldn't it?
Well, I think we do.
It's better, and how much that is embedded in this process.
Yeah.
Just one other request as well is under the Beeston Central renovation cost. If probably outside this meeting, I could have a better understanding of what that means and how far that's got, because there's been very references to what's going on in Beeston, and I won't be any further parochial, but an update would be lovely.
That's okay.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Glenn.
It's Glyn.
Oh, see?
And it's Guildford.
Sorry, Glyn. Sorry.
Yeah. And you still owe me a
I
tenner.
can assure you.
Yeah, and you still owe me a tenner.
Oh, do I?
I'll remind you.
Oh yeah, oh I do, don't I? Oh cracky, yeah.
Yeah, it's all right.
That's now public.
I know it is. Well, I was
Yeah.
just waiting to see how long it
Oh,
would
crikey,
be.
yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yes, Chairman. I think one of the things that when we sort of read this report, we've discussed it ourselves, was about some of the detail around that cost benefit analysis in reality, and probably, you know, now people have accepted the fact that we're looking at the cabinet system. Some of the stuff like that, scrutiny of this report, would get down to some of that detail. And I think what we were trying to, you know, get was how does all this come about? You know, the fact that, you know, we've got a building that's already existing in Mansfield and you want to build another one. When you're talking about having an economic impact, yes, there'll be an impact because we're going to build a new one, but it's not, you know, dependent unless it's right in the in the town centre on the square. Actually, it's not going to make that much difference to some of the other stuff about where staff go out shopping during the dinner time, etc., 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 which economically helps the town centre. So, you know, so trying to sort of balance all those issues, it's not pulled out within the report, if you know what I mean. The other one is ease of access. There are certain people that I accept, you know, you do need to have somewhere where they can go, but actually most of our systems now are all about dialing the free phone number or use the app, you know, or send an email. Access these days, and still a lot of town halls are still not, in certain circumstances, allowing members of the public to venture through the doors in some places to deal with them. So, you know, things have changed, but for me, there isn't that clarity in here that would help you sort of argue some of the points. And I just would love to have seen them made. And I think my colleagues have made, you know, given you excellent examples around that. And that's not just including the energy efficiency and everything else, time saved. But I think we also want to understand it ourselves. How did you get to that decision? What did you use? You know, what's there? What matrix, etc., have you put together to enable you to come and say, that's the best location. That will, in the long term, be more cost efficient, because in one hand it will save us money, but on the other hand, the public who need that service have ease of access and get good quality services, and our staff have good quality accommodation to work in. Because let's not dismiss that either. You know, we want our staff to work in good, sound, quality accommodation that's not, as one officer said, you know, 1 minute it's hot, 1 minute it's cold. You know, we want it to be, you know, right.
Right, before I bring him in, I'm going to answer a bit about it. If you look on page 19, Glenn, there's actually 8 reports there saying a lot of these facts. So it's in the follow-up paper. So we have had, this is not the first time this has been to the council, you know, and so to look at what we're doing in the context of just this report, I don't think is right. It's the supporting documents that would support a lot of the reasoning behind what we're doing. In terms of where we deliver the services, I don't think we'll ever pick a spot and it'll be right, because there'll be always somebody that's disadvantaged by it. But what I can say, and this is for the first time to my knowledge, that Councillor Taylor, myself and Councillor Boyd, along with the officers from those departments, are meeting up to map out where services are lacking, and how we're going to provide those services in the buildings to put those services in. So that's actually in the process of being done. That's a new administration thing. And so we're doing a lot of work to make sure, excuse me, to make sure that we try and spread out the services that we deliver. Yeah, but we always need a central point, and we feel that Top Wigate is the right place for that to be, because it is more central than here, you know, and it's a, you know, and as you've heard from Children, Young People Services and Adult Social Care and Health, that they feel it's the right thing to do, and so do I. I think, you know, often somebody comes to see our officers and to get into our services, it's the first contact they've ever had with the county council. It's the first time they've ever seen anybody because they've never needed us before. You know, they see the council as the ones that empty the bins and leave potholes in the road. Yeah, that's what they see. But sometimes when they first have to access these services, adult social care and health and children and young people services, when they go in that building, it's the first time. And if that building's run down and rickety and not fit for purpose, it's not really a comforting start for their journey in terms of the services that we provide. Yeah, and so there's a massive benefit in that. They're coming into a building that's fit for purpose and seeing staff that are also fit for purpose. And that's got to be a good thing in my book. That's a message I want to get across, really. I'm not going to bring in Mike because I don't think the environmental benefit has been questioned, really. I think the environmental benefit of Top Wiggy is unquestionable. We've seen the savings that these things are going to bring in. So I'll save you for the next item if that's okay, unless there's something you're desperate to say. No. Do you want to finish off then, Matt, any of the questions I didn't cover there? And then we can go to the vote. Oh, sorry. Hang on. Let him answer the question and I'll bring you in, Mike.
I think you've answered everything, Chairman.
Did I? Did I cover it all, did I? Are you happy then, Glenn, with that before I move on to the next person? Glyn, sorry. It's because I owe you 10, I'm trying to deny you. Yeah. Oh, you're not using your microphone, so I don't know if we heard it, but I don't know if anybody else did. Sorry, Glenn. Sorry, Glyn. And I have got the tenor here to give you. So I think from my point of view, I actually agree with what you're saying. It's about the services we deliver. Yeah, that's the main thing. And from my point of view as a councillor in another place where I'm the deputy leader, we moved from basically, we used to call it Hogwarts, into a brand new building. Yeah, and it was purpose built for the district council. One of the benefits above and beyond the savings that we make, so the cost of running it is massively reduced, the cost of maintenance is massively reduced. So the benefits of that in terms of being able to provide services that you might not be able to be run as well because you haven't got that money to do it. But the additional thing, which is hard to quantify, but as a councillor, it's palpable to me, is the productivity of the officers. When they're in a building that's fit for purpose, the productivity went up. If you'd ever been to Kelham Hall, it was Hogwarts, you could never find an officer because they'd have a little office somewhere in the middle of nowhere. By the time you got there, it was on the lunch break. Now, they're all in the same place. There's officers that now communicate with each other by speaking to them, not by email or telephone. It's amazing. And therefore, relationships are built. And therefore, a lot more work and positive work is done because of that. I don't think you can ever underestimate the power of a relationship with colleagues and in terms of getting things done. And in terms of a councillor, you know, going around and seeing the officers on a daily basis and saying hello and, oh, can you help me with this? I just pick my laptop and my iPad up and go, oh, I've had this email. Can you help me with it? instead of thinking, oh, I've got to write this email out now and I've got to chase up the. It's all done, and it's a lot better. So there's all sorts of benefits that will come out of this, which we'll realise when it happens, but it's hard to quantify. So we've got Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think a lot of it's been said, but there's clearly a lot of positive elements to this, and it's interesting to hear the views of the officers of the relevant departments, and quite rewarding to hear some of the service benefits that they feel that they'll get. It's also useful to hear some of the comments on the left, because we're all here about delivering better services for our constituents. Some of the more intangible benefits are exactly that. They're not quite so tangible, and they're more difficult to prove before we move ahead with things. But certainly on things like the building itself, I mean, Top Wighay, we're talking about a 1.35 million benefit. That's a less than 12-year payback on that construction. Coming from a construction background, I could tell you that's quite an outstanding payback level. In terms of some of the contingency discussion, myself and Councillor Adair quite recently did discuss, challenge, whatever word you want to use, the contingency planning, the contingency thinking behind it, and the contingency appropriateness given the current dynamics that we're all in. We're all seeing energy prices spike, the difficulties in the construction industry, and we were, quite pleasantly surprised with some of the feedback we got back. So it's not that it hasn't been challenged internally, because it has. And if you do have any questions, please ask the officers directly as well. Thank you.
I don't think there's any replies to go to that. Okay, has everybody said the bit? Okay, then proposals are on page 18, been proposed and seconded. All those in favour? Against? Abstain? That's carried. Thank you. I don't know if you want to stay and listen to this wonderful meeting. If you want to leave now, you can do. He's gone already. Excuse me. Okay, that takes us on then to, sorry, Councillor Card, obviously you've not been in one of my meetings before. The way I do it is you ask your questions. If there's a question you have from the answer you get, you can ask another question. Yeah, till you're happy with, might not be happy with the answer, but you know the answer. But then you've had your bit. Yeah, just so you know, so I'm not picking on you. That's how I run it. Yes, it is. You're getting your chance to ask your question, and if you're not happy with the answer, you can ask your question again. So you can keep asking the question until you're happy with it. But then I've got to give other people the opportunity as well. Okay, that takes on to item 5 then, which is renewable electricity tariff options. That is Nick. No, it's you. Oh, you told me, Nick.
It's
Oh,
me.
Hello, Nick.
I'm here. Hello there. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, very briefly then. This report sets out the County Council's proposals to move its electricity purchasing arrangements with Crown Commercial Services onto a renewable green tariff. That supports the Council's aspirations to reach net zero by 2030 as well. The report's got some details in there around our carbon emissions, cost, energy use over the last 5 or 6 years as well, which hopefully sets a scene that we're working in the right direction to reduce our emissions. Obviously, costs don't necessarily reduce quite as quickly because prices increase on energy, as we know at the moment. Obviously, this again is timely, I think, with COP26 happening up in Glasgow at the moment, and members are asked to consider the report and approve the recommendations. And as always, I'm here to answer questions, as are other colleagues in the room. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The recommendations are on page 27, proposed by me.
I'll second them and reserve the right.
Any questions or comments, please? Yep.
Chair, is there any longer term piece of work being carried out around the sustainability of our power supply for the local authority, bearing in mind that prices are rising and rising all the time?
Right, who's answering that one? Is that you? Did you hear that?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much. I'm happy to pick that one up. I think the answer is yes. The County Council's already invested significantly in its own renewable electricity systems. We've got around 50 odd buildings across the county that have got solar panels, which either use the electricity that they generate directly within the buildings and then export through to grid. Obviously, we're constantly looking at opportunities around using our own estate. And obviously we've got significant land holdings that could potentially be used for solar farms, potentially wind farms, battery storage, etc. So we've got a number of projects on the go to look at some of those as we go forward, which obviously will reduce our reliance on grid generation. I think obviously the wider national picture is very much around the greening of the electricity grid as well. So the power industry itself is looking for more renewable sources of power on a daily basis. But certainly from our side, we're trying to increase our own resilience by having more in-house generation as we can. But obviously as a big employer and a big organisation, we're never going to be self-sufficient, unfortunately.
Are you going to come back on any of that? No? Councillor Upton.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the report's extremely timely, good value, and I'm pleased that we're sticking with the government not-for-profit CSS, Crown Commercial Services. Thank you.
And anybody else? Okay, go to the vote then. Sorry, Mike, you've turned up, haven't you? Go on, Mike. Sorry, I do apologise.
Thanks, Chairman. I thought you'd forgotten about me then.
I know. How can I forget about that as well?
Yes, just to say, really pleased to see this here. This transfer to a renewable tariff will reduce our energy, our carbon energy by 72%. We go from 11,000 tonnes of carbon emitted through the existing tariff, and we reduce that by 8,000 by stripping out the electricity, which will be a completely renewable element. So an incredible change, and I think something that is, if you like, a line in the sand about where we're headed. This is very much a first step, but we are absolutely determined to deliver the 2030 plan. Just on a couple of things, Councillor Callaghan, you mentioned around the energy creation. And I think what's important to think is in the bigger picture here, there are emerging technologies all the time. And I think what I would also assure you with is that they will be embraced as and when they get through their market viability. And I'd also like to think that, as a council, we'd try some of these technologies ourselves as well, some of these emerging technologies. We have our company in Netherfield, for example, that is producing a system that can deliver hydrogen from just the water and a very small electricity supply. That's a big deal in terms of what we're trying to achieve. And there's companies all over the UK, and that again is something that we can really look to tie in. As I say, it's a great first step. I think there's other things we're doing. We're looking at our actual overall carbon performance as a council and where we are emitting our main areas of carbon. There's no question that, fleet comes into that. And we're looking at that also. But I think the key thing about this is, as I said, it's a real opportunity to make an instant impact. And I'm incredibly proud to see this here today. So thank you to the officers for the work they've put in. And I look forward to seeing the savings on our carbon emissions coming in. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Mike. Lovely to have your enthusiasm on it. Okay, have a vote then, please. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. You can stay or go if you want. It's up to you. Unless there's another item that you want. Oh, okay. Okay, that takes us on to item 6 then, the proposed purchase of land. Oh, yeah, for woodland planting. That's why you're here, isn't it? You wouldn't think we had a chat this morning, would you? It's because I've got man flu. I'm not well. Right, who's doing this one then? Okay, Matt.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, this is a report seeks approval to the purchase of land for the purposes of woodland planting. This follows September 2020 Policy Committee, where the County Council received a report on Trees for Climate programme, and it gave approval to the Greenwood Community Forest to lead the delivery of the Trees for Climate programme in Nottinghamshire. We've identified an opportunity to purchase land and that is given in the exempt appendix to this report. The report also covers some additional costs which we'll need to include to fund the balance of the purchase price of about £12,000, but overall this is funded from the grant that we receive. The recommendation is contained within the report, and that's it.
I'll second that and reserve the right.
Yeah, a very brief comment. I applaud the target we've got of 250,000 trees over 7 years. I think that's very good. But clearly that presents a challenge to find suitable land that we can purchase to put the trees on. And I would suspect, I think the report hints that it's not easy. It's quite limited when you look at the quality of the land use and the opportunities to purchase land. So full marks from me for finding a site that is on the open market, freehold, and within the community, the Greenwood Community Forest area. So it ticks a lot of my boxes. So I'll be supporting the proposal. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Anybody else? Any comments before I bring the Tsar in? Councillor Carr.
Just briefly, it's a very, very good move, and I will support it. But I think as a country, we're a long way behind. My understanding is that for last year, the last set of figures we've got, we've only planted, not this is a country, this is England, we've planted 71% of what the government target is. So we've got to look for opportunities like this. However, could somebody let me know, because I'm not quite sure that it's clear in the report, that are we going to get this grant? Has it already been awarded to us? And if we haven't, what contingencies have we got in place not to buy the land?
Okay. The only thing I'll say about the 71%, it's been during a pretty amazing period of time where we've been dealing with a lot of other things. So I think yeah, it's not the best. I mean, you know, but it's 71%, or rather be 71% than 29%. Matt. Sorry, Sally.
Yeah, I'd like to reassure councillors that we are in the process of receiving the grant. The challenge for us is to get the sites or find the sites and plant the trees on them. But if members approve the purchase of this piece of land, this will take us a long way towards that. So it's a very exciting proposition. And yes, the money comes in stages. We don't have to wait for the end of the programme. So I can reassure you, Steve, we're not doing it at risk.
That's fine. Can I just come back?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, absolutely.
Just to those figures are up to March 2019, so the pandemic didn't.
Okay.
And also, it was only 29% of target. It was 71% short.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? The Tsar. You're going to have that title now. That's going to be haunting you for the rest of your life.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
You're
glad I
welcome.
came today. I'm just kidding. But yeah, look, I think the Trees for Climate programme is a great programme. Like they've rightly said, 250,000 trees over 7 years. And not just any trees, but these are native UK trees. So, I don't want to teach everybody to suck eggs, but as we know, native trees already recognise the local fauna and flora. Therefore, there's no adaptation required. So animals and insects and everything else can just move in. I've been in discussions about this. I'm trying to get some more Scots pine across. You'll probably hear me say that 150 times over the next few years. But again, in my opinion, it's the only native pine in the UK, and I want to see more of those, and I've requested that to be a part of it. The fantastic thing about the project and the way that it's been working is that it's in consultation with local communities and local groups, and that's to ensure that the locations that that these things are going in, the trees are actually being planted, are done in a way that isn't damaging the existing biodiversity of an area, because obviously we appreciate that biodiversity exists in many, many different landscapes. So, again, it's in consultation with these groups, and they've done a fantastic job with that. This land, I completely agree with Councillor Upton about this, to be able to take that action to go out and buy. I mean, can you imagine this coming to a committee 10 years ago, or that sort of discussion where somebody said, well, you know, we're buying land to plant trees. You're doing what with land to do what? You know, but it shows, well, I think it shows how much of a society how far we've come, you know, and we've all recognised, and, you know, and this council, and I'm sure we're all proud to be members of a council that's actually actively taking mitigation steps directly to deliver, you know, not only enhancing things like our own services, our own buildings, that sort of thing, to be better in regards to carbon. We're also adding that mitigation directly ourselves and taking that carbon directly out of the atmosphere. So, look, I think it's a fantastic piece of work. And again, I thank you all for the time and effort you've put into it. And I look forward to it arriving at my own committee shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is that everybody up? Recommendations then on page 31. Been proposed and seconded. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, item 7 then, the report on the A614697 major route network scheme. Matt.
Thank you, Chairman. Again, this is just to provide an update on the progress with delivery of the full business case, which will be submitted to the Department for Transport as part of the business case approval processes for this scheme. We brought a paper previously, and that was around the outline business case, which was submitted. Approval was given to proceed to the FBC stage in June of this year. Since June, we've been undertaking a significant amount of design work and project work in relation to the scheme itself, and we are due to submit for planning very soon. The report outlines the progress to date. It also gives an updated timetable, so members are clear on where we are in terms of delivery of the programme, and it also details the latest financial package and cost estimate, and what we will be receiving from the Department for Transport as a contribution to this programme. Recommendation is contained within the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt. The recommendations are on page 37, proposed by me.
Second that.
Thank you, Reg. Any comments or questions? Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Chair. Paragraph 23 states that Section 15 officer has to accept the responsibility for the overspend on this project. Given the example of the overspend on the Gedling Access Road, and the fact that the council still can't tell us where the £3 million of the £5 million is coming from, is there another example of this council? Is this another example of this council gambling with using taxpayers' money?
Would you like to answer that, Matt?
Just to say that if I can, the figure that is here also contains a significant contingency as well. We do have a contribution from the Department for Transport, which is paying for a significant amount of the programme, and we're going through that due diligence to ensure that before we enter into the contract itself, we are very clear on the final figure. So that's just to give a bit of context to the costs.
Yeah, thanks. Just a quick one. We're happy to support this. We're a little bit puzzled as to why this keeps coming back to this committee. Whether there's kind of some sort of underlying issue that we're missing here. And again, yeah, we do have concerns over the risk here to the council, but that question's already been asked. But just wonder, you know, is there something in here that we're missing, or why are we seeing this here yet again?
I'll leave that for you, Matt.
Thank you, Chairman. Effectively, because we've now had the outline business case approval, this is to endorse the timetable, really, but we thought it opportune to give everybody the same update in terms of progress, but it's to reset the programme moving forward.
Anybody else? Oh, sorry, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I warmly welcome seeing this today, and I understand the concerns, but I think there's a bigger risk in this. Is not actually doing this whatsoever. There's been many councillors, my predecessor, Councillor John Peck, campaigned passionately for the Ollerton Round upgrade. I'm sure if Councillor Pringle was here, he would say the same. Members of Parliament, other local parish and town councillors, I know on some of the other subjects that we've discussed today. we recognise that costs, things of etc. materials have gone up. We understand that. But I do really come back to that central point. There's actually a bigger risk in not doing this at all.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. You stole my thunder. Because the alternative. Oh, sorry, Councillor Carr. Sorry.
I was going to say it's commonly known as Stella's roundabout, isn't it?
I can't hear you, sorry.
It's commonly known as Stella's roundabout, the Ollerton roundabout.
Yeah, absolutely.
The
Yeah.
previous councillor to John Peck
Bless her.
always used to raise this issue.
Bless her.
Yes, bless her. I'm just well, I'm not concerned. These things need to be done. Previously, 5 years ago, I would have said, why on earth are we building more roads? But the move towards electric cars and hybrid cars is so much now that actually I don't think building a road is going to make a great difference to emissions moving forward when all cars become electric or hybrid. But it does say here as well in item 2, support housing delivery. Now this is going to be huge because you will know, because like yourself, Councillor Gurney, I too am a deputy leader of a borough councillor, and the pressure that's going to be on districts and boroughs to deliver houses over the next few years is immense. And there's going to have to be some very, very difficult decisions changed. For example, if the Chancellor doesn't come up with the money for the infrastructure at Chetwynd Barracks, for example, that's going to put an additional 1,000 extra houses on the City Council and the surrounding boroughs and districts to deliver. And that is actually becoming untenable and keeping a green belt at the same time, because particularly in Broxtowe, the brownfield sites have gone. They've all been developed on. All that is left is green sites. So it is important that we actually open up areas that possibly are brownfield sites or lower grade, because not all green belt is pristine, to say the least. I mean, where there used to be 4 chimneys at Hucknall is green belt. But but it's absolutely essential that we have the infrastructure there to support the delivery of those houses, because this is what the government insists that local authorities, housing authorities do, and to enable it to be done easier and actually open up sites that at the moment aren't opened up, then this is going to be essential.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Carr. I absolutely agree with you. Being in another place, I know the pressures that council has put on in terms of providing houses. I also know how many people are on the council house waiting list. And if you ignore Facebook, it's not about canoes coming across from France. It's about actually we've got an ageing population. People are living longer, staying in their houses a lot longer than they used to. Therefore, we've got young people who need to move into houses. Yeah, so that's the reasoning behind it, and that's rightly so. It's great that people are living longer. We obviously have the issue where they're not necessarily living longer well, and that's a different issue. But it does unlock land, and that's got to be a good thing, because we are under pressures as district councils to provide those areas. So I welcome in that. In terms of Councillor Shaw, again, it's the language you use. It's the alternative is to do nothing, right? That's your alternative. And if you look at item 9 later on in the agenda, you see that this council isn't a council of doing nothing. It's about making decisions and getting on with it, because we know that we've got to move forward. Standing still, I don't interrupt you, standing still is not the answer. Yeah. And it's not all about carbon reduction in this road. If you've ever been stuck on that road for 2 or 3 hours, you'll know how difficult it can be to get anywhere. And that's all part of it as well, to keep that flow going so that people can get to where they need to go in a reasonable time. So I mean, we got the funding, which is great, and well done to the officers for applying for it, getting it on there on the agenda. We've got councillors in this room who are going to benefit from that. I'm summing up now, Mike. Benefit from that development, which is a good thing. They'll be able to tell you, if you want to find out more detail about what it's like, stuck on Ollerton roundabout, trying to get around there. In my distant past, I had a date on the other side of Ollerton roundabout, I used to go and see a regular, and it was a blooming nightmare. So, you know, this was all about making, I know, it was nightmare free in the date as well, but not just getting there. But, you know, so this is a good thing, and getting the money to do that has got to be a good thing. Okay, and to do nothing, well, that just beggars belief for me. Well, we've got a, say again, sorry?
Point of order, Chair. I didn't say do nothing. I was arguing about the cost.
So what? Well, it's been explained to you that the contingency is built in. So what's your alternative then? If the cost is too,
all I've said to you is I'm concerned about the cost to this authority. I've not gone on about
so
not
what's
building.
so
What
what,
about,
well, no, you're using cost as a reason not to do it.
Chair.
You're using cost as a reason not to do it.
No, the cost is it's there in black and white.
Yeah.
It says here.
So are you saying then the cost is too much and we
No
shouldn't do it?
further funding will be provided by the Department of Transport.
Yeah. And it's been explained to you that actually there's a contingency built in there. So
And
what
I-
are you suggesting then? I'm going to ask you a question. I can ask questions. I'm the chairman. So are you suggesting then that the money is too much, so we shouldn't do it? Or are you just saying, oh, it's a lot of money, but we get on with it anyway? What are you saying?
I think, Chair, you've misinterpreted the question. I think you really need to take a step back and take you some more medicine.
Ooh, that was personal, wasn't it? Oh, that's terrible. That's cut me to the quick, not. Okay, we've got to go to the vote. All those in favour? Those against? Abstain? Oh, okay, lovely. That takes us on then to item 8, logistics sector study. Jerry.
Thank you, Chair. This report recommends the approval of £15,000 from this council to support a logistics study that will be done in partnership with a number of other Nottinghamshire councils as well as the City Council. The proposal really comes from partnership working around employment, where the partner authorities commissioned some work around an employment land needs study. That particular study then recommended a bit of further work around logistics, which, as you will know just from reading the press, is a vastly growing and changing sector, and which our consultants told us really is one that's A, underrepresented within the county, and B, is one within which there is the potential for further growth through the identification of strategic pieces of land, probably adjacent to motorway junctions and the like. So what the study would essentially do would be to answer those. So where might those the logistics sector be enabled to grow in Nottinghamshire questions, but also some economic questions about the nature of the growth of the logistics sector, its particular problems at the moment, and ways in which we can potentially support the sector to address at least some of those problems. The recommendation, as I say in the report, is that we support the partnership. The other partner councils are also giving some money to a study that we estimate will cost around £60,000.
No, thank you. The recommendation on page 41, proposed by me.
I'll second that and reserve the right.
And any questions or comments, please? Councillor Callaghan.
Yeah, point 7. Yeah, you know the recommendations. You've got quite a few recommendations, but shouldn't one of the recommendations include an environmental study as well, going forward? Wouldn't that be beneficial as well?
There's only one recommendation,
No,
which is on
point 7, and you've got a bullet points of all things that you would do, and then one of those bullet points, shouldn't one of those bullet points be about to have recommendations to include an environmental study as well as part of it?
It'll be obviously have to be a county-wide environmental study in terms of the impact.
Yeah.
I think that's
that
doable, Jerry.
Chair, really environmental impact studies will emerge as part of any planning exercise subsequent to the study itself. So the idea would be that that the study would identify the needs of the sector, the scale of the needs of the sector within the county, as well as the land that potentially could contribute to meeting those needs. Once we've identified particular sites, then a fundamental part of the planning process will be to commission detailed environmental impact assessments in relation to those particular sites. The study itself will look at environmental impact in the round, but the detail, I think, is important to be commissioned at that strategic planning point.
Hey, do you want to come back on that?
So you will have that as a standalone point then?
We can include it as a
within
standard.
that,
We can include that as a
because that's
standalone.
that's an
It's
important
sort
thing
of covered in the first
Yeah.
bullet point as well, sort
Yeah.
of. But I think
Sort of, yeah.
I think until you know where the industry wants it, I think then that's when they can focus on the environmental study of that. But yeah, I don't. That would be part of any
So
planning
it's a
anyway.
two-stage process, I think, what
Yeah.
we're saying. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Councillor Upton next.
Thank you, Chairman. Given my involvement with the local plan at Rushcliffe and the Greater Nottingham planning strategic area, I firmly believe we need up-to-date statistics like this if we're going to plan future development effectively. You know, this is what we need, and I think for the cost involved and the joint working, I totally support the recommendation. Thank you.
Okay. Who's going to answer that, Jerry? Was he?
I don't think I need to add anything to it. I'm grateful for the support.
Right, thank you. Thank you. I've got Councillor Carr next.
Thank you. Also on 7, I think it's quite possible that you include the environmental aspect in every single one of those points, as I think has been pointed out.
I would agree.
As part of the review. But as Councillor Upton said, it is essential that we have this information. That Rushcliffe, Broxtowe, Ashfield and the city and Gedling are currently doing the next stage of the local plan, the core strategy as it used to be called. And without this sort of information, we just can't predict, which is one of the reasons why the process has been stalled for a bit, because we don't know what's being proposed with regards to planning legislation, etc. Also, is HS2 coming or isn't HS2 coming, which is a big issue, particularly in Broxtowe and Ashfield. And if HS2 does come, how do we get the workforce there? And the Freeport, how do we get the workforce there? Because where the Freeport is going to be situated, there's not a great deal of unemployment, so it's going to have to come from elsewhere. And how do you get them there? And where you're going to house them is another matter as well. So I support this review, and I think it will be of great help to the districts and boroughs and the city when we actually come to make the decisions and go to consultation. Incidentally, Broxtowe are doing a consultation at the moment on the Toton Master Plan. Might be a complete waste of time, we don't know, but at least we've done it, and it shows that ourselves and Erosh Council, who are all part of it as well, are actually looking to the future, and the City Council played a huge part in that as well. Sorry, not the city, the County Council played a huge part in that as well.
I share your frustration over HS2, Councillor Carr. And actually, when you were speaking then, I wrote down consultation because I'm going to plug your borough's consultation that's out at the moment, looking at what if, actually, isn't it? It's looking at what if we don't have HS2, what next? What can we do? And just to reassure you, from our point of view, from the County Council, we're keen that it's not just HS2, it's more than that. Yeah, it's not. Yes, it was sold on the speed of getting to London, but actually it's not. It's more about the regeneration of an area and what it brings into that area. And we're very keen to make sure that if HS2 doesn't happen, that there's something done there where that area will benefit. And I just want to give you that reassurance. Yeah. What is levelling up? Anyway, Councillor Fong.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I was going to mention Toton and HS2, but I won't. Obviously, that's been discussed. But yes, it's frustration to us all, isn't it? We need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. I can assure you, everybody on our group is frustrated, whether they're in Bassetlaw or whether they're in Broxtowe. We're all frustrated because we need to know, because there's lots we can be getting on with.
Well, there's so much kind of predicated on it now, isn't there, really? And if it doesn't happen, then it's going to be quite significant. I think Anne's point about environmental impacts really well made. I just wonder, I mean, and this is brand new to me, and Jerry was very patient, gave a very good briefing, but I must confess, not being used to this kind of report, I'm still struggling to understand it completely. I suppose my big worry in all this is, well, the two things. One is, if you're talking about logistics, which is kind of getting kind of good flow of goods, I'm saying, how are we going to make absolutely sure that this is going to benefit Nottinghamshire people with Nottinghamshire jobs and Nottinghamshire business, and the goods just don't kind of go from the airport now out the other side into another county? How are we going to make absolutely sure that this is going to benefit us? I think that's really a really important part of this. The other thing as well I wanted to ask as well is, I mean, is the assumption made here that all this is going to be around the road network? I mean, what about rail links? I mean, this could really kind of make a really good argument for us around strengthening the rail network around the Midlands, couldn't it, the East Midlands, which is something we've been banging on about for years and years and years, and the underinvestment is just appalling. So, you know, this could actually help with that if more stuff could go via rail. Not only is it safe, it's more environmentally, well, you know, you don't need me to list all the benefits, do you? So I think that's just yeah, that's me done.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I think you're right. We have to make sure that what we do is going to be the benefit of the people that live in Nottinghamshire, because they're going to get the pain of it. So we want to have the benefit from it as well. And I think that's why, or I think I'm right in saying, Jerry, that all the districts and boroughs have contributed to this.
With the exception of Bassetlaw, simply because it's not within what the planners call a functional economic area.
Okay.
But the other aspect to that is that Bassetlaw have just recently completed their own logistics study, which will underpin this as one of the basic pieces of information.
Okay, it was great. I'm sure we'll share our study with them, and they can share the study. Excuse me, so we can get maximum benefit from it.
Can I just respond, Chairman, to a couple of those specific points? Thank you very much. You asked about how ensuring that logistics growth benefits Nottinghamshire people. In many ways, that was one of the fundamental aspects behind the commissioning of the study, which obviously hasn't yet been commissioned. But looking at the brief as I am now, one of the key things that it asks the consultant to do is to help us to develop approaches to ensure maximum benefits from sector growth are derived locally, which is specifically what you asked. And of course, rail is fundamentally important, as well as road. I mentioned motorway junctions, but that in no way diminishes the key importance of rail and other forms of transport.
Okay, thank you. Happy? Anybody else? Okay, let's go to the vote then. Recommendations, page 41. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That takes us then on to item 9, operational decisions, quarterly update to June to September. Neil.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I mean, this is our quarter report to you of the operational decisions that we've taken, which are obviously on the more minor activities that don't require under the Constitution to come direct to this committee for decision. There's a lengthy list of them here. I suppose I bring your attention to a couple at the top of the second page, which again, us taking back land for more woodland planting, showing another tool we've got to try and provide for woodland planting into the future, which is taking back low quality farmland effectively on a smaller basis than the other report, but an example of other activities that we can do. So available for any questions on the process or any of the individual items. Thank you.
Recommendations are on page 46.
Second that and reserve the right.
Lovely, thank you. Any questions or comments? No, okay, we'll go straight to the vote then. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, item 10 is the sale of land at Fareham Pastures, Clifton. If you want to talk about the finances, please wait until it goes to the exempt item. Yeah. This is Matt, please.
Thank you, Chairman. So, as you've said, the report is to seek the sale of land at Fareham Pastures. This has been requested as part of the realignment of the highways works in relation to Nottingham Road, and the promoters and Homes England approaching us for some land which will be used for that purpose. Homes England would like to purchase around about 0.67 acres, and as you've said, Chairman, there's an exempt appendix which details that in terms of the terms and conditions of sale. The sale to Homes England is being done on a negotiated basis, but is a departure from the council's usual policy, and hence why this report is coming here. The group manager for legal services and the Section 151 officer have been consulted in respect of the transaction and its appropriateness to proceed, and you'll also see some of the financial and constitutional comments within the report, and the recommendation is detailed. I'm happy to answer any questions on this report.
Well, thank you, Matt. Any questions or comments? Yeah. Oh, sorry, I thought I'd done that. Recommendations page, I can't see it, 48.
Second that, reserve the right.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments? No, Street. Oh, Roger.
Just to say, Chairman, that Fareham Pastures is one of Rushcliffe's 6 strategic housing sites. So anything that moves that forward, and this clearly does, has my full support, and I will be supporting the recommendation.
Well, thank you. So let's go straight to the vote then. Recommendation page 48. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. That takes us then on to the work programme. I might as well just do that one. This is a moving feast, so as things come up, they'll come up. Has anybody got any comments on the work programme? Okay, that's just for noting anyway, isn't it? So moving on. So I've got to read out this thingy-me-bobby now, isn't it? Let me get to me thingy-me-bobby. Okay. Exclusion of the public. The committee will be invited to resolve that the public be excluded for the remainder of the meeting on the grounds that the discussions are likely to involve disclosure of exempt information described in Section 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, and the public interest is maintained. Maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. I think we need to have a vote on that. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Vote, all in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you very much. Can you let me know when the live streaming is off, please?